Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your podcast host for today's episode. Today, we have on the show Gordon Martens, partner of Martens Law. We're going to learn all about his business, his journey to business partnership, best practices, and challenges he may have faced along the way to give you that inside look to what it's like to own and operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop episodes like this. Welcome, Gordon. It's so great to meet you.
Great to be here, Kay.
Well, I'd love to dive in. Tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Martin's Law.
Uh, my name is Gordon Martens. I'm an attorney here in Texas, in Austin, not far from Kay's office as well. Um, I've been an attorney since 2015, so almost 10 years now. And for all of that time, I've worked in Texas state and local tax law. Most of what I do in my law practice is controversy work. So it arises when, for the most part, when the state has taken the position that a company was failing to comply with some state and local tax filing requirement. Oftentimes, that'll be a sales tax audit notice that they get, and at the conclusion of the audit, the company will get an assessment. Sometimes in the hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of millions. Some of them have even been in the hundreds of millions. So they can be basically an existential threat for those businesses. And our firm represents businesses when they're faced with that in the audits and administrative appeals and in the Texas state courts to challenge those tax assessments. That's what I do, and that's what everyone here at our firm does.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm really excited to dive into this deeper because, as many of our listeners are small to mid sized businesses, as well as myself, having a small business. So I think this is something that's very important. And I'm excited to learn more about your company and what you do. And so you mentioned you work with businesses. Like, what would you say the average employee number for the businesses you work with is?
We have a few clients that are very large, Fortune 500 type companies. And then we have quite a few clients that are what I would call small to mid-size. And so they may have anywhere from uh, a few, I'd say the smallest ones have maybe a few employees. Most of them have a few dozen. And there's a pretty good group of clients for our firm where they have, somewhere between 1 and 300 employees.
Oh, that's very thank you for like clarifying that. And also in your own firm, what does your team look like? I want to ask too, what kind of team do you have right now?
We're a small boutique law firm, so we have three professionals, the two partners, and then two staff members right now. We're hiring. We've got a law clerk that came and worked for us over the summer who's graduating law school, and she's going to come join us here in August. And then we have a few more potential applicants looking to join our firm too. So we're sort of in a growth mode, but very small, very focused team we have.
Oh, I love that. Love to hear that you're growing and kind of and supplying such an important service to businesses. Looking back at the beginning of your career, what was your why? What inspired you to get into law, specifically around business law?
So I come from a long line of lawyers. I did try at one point in my youth. I thought I would try and get away from that and thought I would go and be an accountant. I wasn't really too interested in that type of work. I've always been drawn to um, lawyers and the type of work that they do, helping people with problems that, in our current system, people really can't represent themselves effectively, whether that's, the civil courts or tax issues like we handle or the criminal justice system. Lawyers are uniquely necessary in order to engage in those processes and really meaningfully protect your rights. I've always been drawn to that. When I was a young kid, I would read John Grisham novels about lawyers and always sort of idolized that. I have one grandfather who's an attorney. My father, I practice law with. He's an attorney here, and I have two uncles who are attorneys as well, and my sister. So we have, it's almost like I was born into it, and I thought for a short time I'd maybe get away from that, but didn't manage to, and so I sort of find myself here.
It called you back. I
It,
love that. Looking at your firm and what you do and lawyers and attorneys, what is maybe a common misconception from, say, business owners or other people when it comes to understanding attorneys and lawyers?
Attorneys are human beings just like anyone else. I think because the legal profession has had such a sort of unique position in society and skill set, and we've used our own verbiage that's been difficult for people to understand outside of it. Attorneys have almost been seen like these non-human professionals, and people don't really fundamentally understand what we do. And so I think, a lot of my personal philosophy of the practice of law is to talk about it in ways that make it understandable to our clients and to people in general. So I do a lot of education. I do a webcast for CPAs regularly, and in that webcast, educate CPAs throughout the state about the types of tax issues that our firm handles and that their clients might face. And one of my main, I think, personal and professional goals has always been to sort of bridge that knowledge gap to make the tax laws seem understandable to people that don't have that background. And we do that in an education context, and we do that for clients when we're representing them. So that's, I guess, that would be my effort to overcome that divide.
Definitely. Well, I love that you're building community kind of within your firm and like extending that education to help others maybe alleviate some of those problems before they happen. Looking at some of the problems that your clients are facing, what are some of the challenges that you've seen that clients are struggling with?
The most common one that our firm represents taxpayers for would just be, sales tax compliance issues. A lot of businesses don't understand that they need to be collecting tax from their customers when they sell taxable goods and services. They don't know what services are considered taxable by the state. It's extremely difficult to comply with the rules in even just one state. And so you have small businesses as they expand, they start operating in multiple states. And there's this complex web of different rules and different taxability issues in the different states. And so it can be almost impossible for a small business owner to effectively comply with state laws in so many different states. And so that's the most common thing that we see is, a business is growing. Maybe they've gone from a few million in revenue a year, and now they're at 10 or 20 or 100 million a year in revenue. Suddenly they're going to get audited by the IRS for their federal income tax compliance. They'll be audited by the state for Texas, things like sales and franchise tax compliance. And through those audits, unfortunately, they generally become educated about the ways in which the state views them as not complying. And it can be a very expensive education process. And so that's sort of what I mentioned with the webcast and with the public speaking and education that we do is we try to empower CPAs, especially CPAs that represent those smaller businesses, to get their clients on the right track before the problem grows, snowballs to the point where it's an existential threat to the business.
Definitely. It sounds like you're bringing some awareness to topics that really need to be thought about for small businesses. And I'm curious about how you're marketing your firm. Are you out like marketing actively? Are you using social media? How are you getting folks plugged into what you're working on?
We use a variety of approaches. Historically, attorneys receive the majority of their new business through referrals from other attorneys, and so we've always believed that if you did good work and you delivered excellent results for your clients, that alone would bring in referrals because that would become publicly known. We do that, and we have done that and continue to build referrals through other attorneys. But as the world is changing, more and more clients come through other avenues. So we do a lot of education and outreach for CPAs because oftentimes the CPAs will be the first ones that get a call when their client has a problem. So we have a lot of referrals we receive from those. And then we have a website where we receive a fair amount of calls, most of them not for prospective clients. We get a lot of phone calls just with people, small business owners, maybe like yourself, that have a question about what they might need to do in terms of complying with sales or franchise or property tax or the BOI, beneficial ownership reporting, or other issues. So we have that. We have focus on SEO for our website quite a bit in order to drive traffic there. So we have multiple different channels we use to receive new work.
Oh, that's incredible. That's so good to hear. That's like kind of a golden nugget of this conversation too for business owners out there, to be on multiple platforms to help spread the word about what you're doing. And then, giving valuable information and creating community are some really great ways to do that. Looking at kind of what you have coming up in the future of your business, I love to ask this question. Where do you see the company going in the next 3 to 5 years?
We continue to expand. I talked about the efforts that we're undertaking to generate new business. Those efforts have been very successful. In fact, the new business coming in has sort of outpaced our ability to hire great new lawyers. And so we've been hiring, uh, putting a lot of effort into recruiting. I've made a lot of individual phone calls to attorneys in the Austin area, trying to find ones that might be interested in joining our firm. But yeah, our business and our workloads have continued to grow, and so now we're sort of shifting to, well, we need to expand our law firm so that we can continue delivering excellent results and continue to build our business.
And as you're continuing to build your business, what would you say is your approach to goal setting? Like, how do you plan to make these things happen? Goal setting is hard, and I always am curious to what people are doing to find success.
Yes, absolutely. So we're a law firm. We're a professional services firm. The quality of the service that we deliver depends upon the individual professionals that work here. And so most of what we do around goal setting relates to attorneys at our firm, newer attorneys, and our efforts to sort of build them up so that they can become partners in the firm in the future. And so a lot of the work we do and the goals that we set are for our professionals to take on more active roles, communicating with clients, communicating with opposing counsel, the lawyers on the other side, and developing their skill set and their ability to go and educate and to market our firm and sort of building up them as professionals. It's difficult to put metrics around that. And because we're a small firm, we don't have, you couldn't really look at monthly metrics very meaningfully. We will oftentimes have a few very large lawsuits that we're handling at a time, and then a few dozen smaller client engagements. We don't necessarily focus as much on the number of engagements or the particular clients that we have or their size. We focus a lot on what we think drive growth and success in that, which is the efforts to develop our practice, to build our client base, and to develop the skills of our professionals.
Definitely. Well, you mentioned, building up some of the people that work or building up the people that work with you. That leads me to ask, what is your leadership style and how do you engage with your staff?
I have always believed that leaders should lead by example, and in a small firm, we really do sort of have to show new lawyers how to practice law. They're not going to necessarily come out of law school with all of the practical skills that we might wish that they had. So a lot of developing newer attorneys and other professionals is letting them join client meetings, calls, hearings, trials, things of that nature, where they're there, where they may be able to support the service that we're providing, but predominantly it gives them an opportunity to develop their skill set and to sort of learn the profession through seeing how judges and lawyers operate.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I really have enjoyed this conversation. We've covered so much ground, and I'd like to go into a fun part of the Q&A called our rapid fire questions, where I ask you 4 questions. You answer very top of mind. So, Gordon, are you ready for some rapid fire?
I think I am. Let's see.
All right. The first question is, what is a key to success for you?
Key to success for me and for our firm has always been just delivering excellent client results. We represent clients in district court litigation, which is publicly available. And so we have been able to establish a track record of success, and that's in published case opinions. And we just seek to continue establishing that so that we continue to have more clients join our firm.
Oh, wonderful. And the second question is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
My main advice would just be, as your business grows, you want to be ahead of your compliance issues, not behind them. You don't want to be educated about a federal tax compliance issue or a sales tax issue because you get a large audit assessment and have to hire a law firm to fight it. So, take this opportunity to really visit any type of licensing or compliance or reporting requirements you might have. I talked with Kay a little bit about those. I'll just sort of list them quickly here for you. Think about your federal tax compliance issues. Make sure that you've thought about whether the independent contractors that you pay could be treated as employees, because that's often an area we see with a lot of potential liability. Think about the services that you render and whether you operate in states or countries that impose tax on those services. If you don't collect the tax from your customer, under most states' laws, the state can go and collect it from you. You don't want that to happen. So, and evaluate the types of revenues that you have and whether a state would say that you owe sales tax on those. Another concern is what they call trust fund taxes. If you do collect sales tax from your customers, you hold that tax in trust for the benefit of the state. The state has anointed you as a tax collector, and those are not your funds. They're not a source of liquidity or cash flow for your business. They have to be turned over immediately to the government. The same applies with federal income tax withholding taxes and FICA type taxes. Those are trust fund taxes, and they're really stiff penalties for not transferring them over. So if you find yourself in a bind, tap the credit line. Don't hold off on remitting employment taxes or sales taxes or any other trust fund taxes. Be aware of other reporting issues that have recently come into play. I mentioned the beneficial ownership information reporting. The fine for that can be $600 a day just for not filing a form that could be very simple and straightforward to file. Avoid those types of existential threats to your business.
Definitely. And before we hopped on this call, you mentioned something that really struck my attention that I wouldn't even think about as a business owner, which was the issues with TikTok. And can you go into detail about how even not complying with the TikTok rules that can actually be threatening to your business?
Yeah, that was one that got a lot of attention in the press recently. The federal government instituted a ban on not just TikTok, but on facilitating access to that platform. And so the potential penalties for that ban were $5,000 per user. And
Wow.
because you've got platforms that have millions of users, those penalties would be in the billions. I saw an estimation that it could be in the hundreds of billions for
Mm.
other companies that facilitate access to that platform. And we saw just yesterday in the news with the suspension of that ban with the new presidential inauguration, different companies approaching it differently. Some of them, because of the potential size of the penalties, they're not going to risk it, and they're just not going to facilitate access to TikTok on their platforms. Others will.
Mm.
That's sort of been prominent in the news and prominent in social media. But there are compliance issues like that for small businesses too, and it's very easy for small penalties like that to snowball very quickly if you don't stay on top of them.
Definitely. Well, thank you for answering that question. The number three is, what is a book or piece of content that you've taken in most recently?
I'm about halfway through a book by Cal Newport called A World Without Email. And I guess the sub caption there is reimagining work in an age of information overload. And I think this is something so many attorneys struggle with because, I talk to them and it's something in their day-to-day law practice and life that just becomes overwhelming. But just the sheer volume of email communication nowadays and email becoming the main pathway that we just not only communicate with our clients about the work that we're doing, but a lot of the work that we're doing is through email. We're giving tax compliance advice. We're giving answers to questions. We're updating clients on the status of their matters. And so, we get hundreds of emails a day. And I know it's become a personal project for me to find a way to deal with that information overload in a way that doesn't interfere with me having a lot of dedicated time to those deep thinking type tasks that really deliver the most value for our clients.
Oh, that sounds like a great book that should be on everyone's list. And our final question is, if you could wave a magic wand and overnight rapidly and change one aspect of your business for the better, what would it be?
That's a tough one. Uh, I've never really had a magic wand, so I haven't thought too much about magic wand type solutions. I think the main struggle that we mentioned is we've we've got a lot of work coming in, and it's been a real challenge to find professionals able to join our firm and perform that work. So if I could wave a magic wand right now, I'd probably take our stellar associate that I've been working with this morning, and I would just create 3 clones of her. That would be, I guess, my magic wand item.
I love it. Well, thank you for your honesty and your transparency. This has been such a great conversation. I've learned so much. And for anybody listening to this, listen to this a couple times through. There's so many great nuggets that Gordon has shared in this episode. Before we get to our final question of the day, how can people connect with you and your firm?
You can find us on our website, texastaxlaw.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I post pretty often on social media. You're welcome to give us a call at our office. We get a lot of calls, not just from prospective clients, but just from people in general that they hear something and they think, okay, is that something I need to worry about complying with? And we're happy to have those kinds of calls and provide that type of education in an academic context free of charge. Give us a call. Our phone number is 512-542-9898. And you can ask to speak with me, Gordon, or any of the attorneys here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And for our final question of the day, what is most inspiring to you today?
I've been, have been working from home earlier this week because of the weather and the holiday, um, and was around my wife as she had to work herself and take care of our daughter, and so it just was amazingly impressed with her and her ability to juggle um, her workload and trying to focus on tasks and my young daughter at the same time. So yeah, parents having to balance the responsibility of being professionals and having work, especially work from home with children. It's something that I'm very privileged to have my wife support in that area and really inspired by what she's able to do.
Ah, well, that is inspiring. Thank you so much for this great conversation. Been a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Kay.